Hello and welcome to Get Started. I'm Merlin, and in this episode we're going to unleash the agents of Annihilation, the dreaded Scorpek destroyers. Not only do we build a brand new unit for our Necrons, but we build our first piece of terrain, a set of Imperial pipes for our models to do battle over. Before we begin, let's review the health and safety tips. One, work in a well-lit and well-ventilated area, especially when using glues. 2. Always have a flat and sturdy surface to work on. Kitchen table or a computer desk is ideal. 3. Seek adult supervision, especially when using sharp implements such as plastic cutters and hobby knives. 4. Don't rush yourself. Take your time to read through the instructions and learn your frames before you begin. Okay, before we begin, grab yourself Necron Frame F, the Scorpek destroyers, and Scenery Frame D, the fuel pipes, and then we're ready to begin. I'll see you at the build desk. Okay, when you're ready to begin, open your command manual to page 53. This includes the instructions on how to build our Scorpek destroyers and our set of pipelines. So, we're going to build the first Scorpek destroyer, which uses components F1 through to F8. So, we'll grab our frame, and our first Scorpek destroyer is pretty much this corner here, which is pretty easy for cutting out all the components. So, first we need F1, F2, and F3. So, F1 is this piece here, his spine. You want to be careful when cutting out this component so we don't damage the post, which is important for holding the model together. So, just work your way around, making sure you hold on to the component so it doesn't fly off when you make your final cut. Next, F2 is his back. So, cut out torso, the weapon, and his arm, freeing up our model piece. Finally, we want F3, which is the hip just here. Also take care of these posts here, as you don't want to damage them. If you can, cut a little way away from it and then trim them down afterwards, like so. With that component free, we can now trim down the remainder of that tab with our clippers. Okay, with those components cleaned up, ready to begin our first assembly. During the cleanup process, make sure you take extra care with these hip joints here, as they are pretty fragile. I have damaged them on previous models, but luckily this time around I was able to avoid any damage. So, our first assembly is to take F2 and F1 the spine, and push the spine through the central hole on the back until it's firmly in place. Next, we'll take the hip joint. We want to make sure that this hole is facing backwards. And then we'll slide the top hole into position of F1's peg. We'll set that assembly aside and we'll begin with our next part. So bringing the frames back in, our next components are F4 and F5. So F5 is his main torso, and F4 is his left arm and his face. So let's just carefully cut these out. Being careful not to damage any of the delicate components, such as the head. Okay, with those components clipped up and cleaned off, we can bring them together. So, what we need to do is to hook this bit of the collar over the arm and neck joint just there. And then bring it around till it swoops into place. Like so. Next, we'll bring in our previous assembly, lining up the peg and the hole. We can push them together, and that will hold everything in place, and we're almost done. So our next three components are our final components. We need F6, F7 and F8, his legs. So F7, F8 and F6 are just here. So let's cut those out right now. These are luckily easy enough to get our hobby knife, our clippers, up against the flats of the components and clip them away easy. Oh dear, I got a damage. There we go. I'll have to fix that in a minute. I'll just get those cleaned up and we'll be ready to do our final assembly. So we've got our legs clipped out and ready to go onto our hip joints. So we'll start with F7, the left leg. Just pushing it on until it's firmly in place. Then we'll take F8, the right leg. And do the same. Pushing it down like so. And finally, F6 slots into that hole on the back like so. Now we're ready to push them down to one of the 50mm round bases. Taking care of that damaged leg that I've got. There. That'll do. Ready for battle. So now we can move on to our pipes. Okay, let's give our models something to fight over. Terrain not only gives your models cover, but it also helps bring your battlefields to life. As with all the models in Command Edition, the terrain is designed to simply push fit together without the need of any glue. If you want a more permanent fix, simply apply glue along the yellow guidelines in your instruction guides before you push your components together. Okay, here we have our scenery frame D with all our pipes. So we get 7 pieces of terrain in total on this frame. So we've got the main generator here, 2 damaged pipes, a corner pipe, and then 3 straight pipes. I'll show you how to build 1 straight pipe, the corner pipe, and this generator component here. So let's begin. First we need D1 and D2, which are these 2 components just here. So take your time working around each component until it comes away from the frame, taking care not to damage any of that lovely detail. When cleaning up component 2, take your time. There are quite a few mould lines around the central piece here, and you also want to be careful about damaging any of the rivets when removing bits of sprue tab. But with both components cleaned up, we can see we've got a series of holes and a series of posts on the insides. Just line them up and push them together. There we have our first terrain piece built. Next, let's build one of the long pipes. We'll build this one here, the one with a downward curve on the end. So, just clip out the components, being careful of any detail nearby. So there's our first component, D8, and we want D7, this one over here. One final cut. There we are. There we go. I've cleaned up parts D7 and D8. And just like with parts 1 and 2, we've got a series of holes and pegs. Just line them up and push them together until it's firm, like so. So that's our straight section of pipe. Follow those guides for the remaining 2 long sections, as well as the 2 broken sections. Finally, let's build something a bit more complex. We'll learn how components can interact to create a single piece. For our last build, we need 4 components. D9, D10, D11, and D12. We'll cut those out now. With our components cleaned up, ready to begin assembly. So we'll take D9 and D10. Take careful note when cleaning these out, as there's again some fragile bits, such as rivets and bolts. So these, again, like the other pipes, just push together with our posts and holes. Squeezing them tightly until we've got a solid piece. Next, we'll take D12, and you'll notice there's a small notch on the inside of our outer casing, which corresponds with the hole on the rear of our pipe. Simply push that into place, helps to have everything the right way around. There we go, like so. So there's a small notch on the top end of the pipe, which will rest on the peg hole there. Simply push in like so. And then to finish assembling the complete piece, we'll push D11 on like so. And there we have our completed pipe section. So follow the guides in your command manual and you'll have the other Scorpio destroyers and pipes all built. When it comes to finishing our models, simply follow the yellow guidelines in our command manual to apply glue and seal our models together. I hope you found these build guides helpful. In episode 3's paint guide, I show you a great method on how to get an energy effect on our Necrons combat weapons, perfect for the Scorpio destroyers. We'll also paint our terrain up to a good tabletop standard for our games of Warhammer 40,000. I've been Merlin. This has been Get Started. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.